Welcome to Driving the Lane with Randy Kraayenbrink and Chuck Rowe, a podcast presented by News Talk 1540 KXEL. Now, Driving the Lane.
Welcome to Driving the Lane. Randy Kraayenbrink, Chuck Rowe, the show where we talk mostly about one thing and one thing only, and that is
Panther basketball.
Now, it's important that we remind you that even though we are the official UNI basketball show for News Talk 1540 KXEL, our comments may not reflect the feelings of our friends at UNI. However, Randy is a former player, and I have season tickets, so this is as official as this show is going to get. We want to let you know that portions of the show can be heard on KXEL, with the entire show found on their website. Now, Randy, we're running into a little bit of a rut at the moment. I'm having a tough time closing out games, right? So from a player's perspective, I mean, you played on some, a really good team in the 80s and then a couple of growing ones, but what happens in the last 2 minutes of a game when you have a lead? Like, you personally, I mean, do you enjoy the stress of being in the lead those last 2 minutes, or does it feel more comfortable being the underdog coming back? Walk us through that.
No, I would say you want the lead, because then you kind of control a little bit more of your destiny. And I think what happened, obviously, the Drake game was fantastic. The fans were awesome. What a great setup there. That was really, really cool. And keep coming back, fans, because we're gonna end the season really strong. Anyway, so back to your question. You want the lead at the end of the game, and I think what kind of happened is, if you kind of replay it in your mind or you watch it again, is we kind of ended up standing around a little bit. We the other four players on the floor that didn't have the ball kind of became spectators, and expected maybe someone else to do it, or they didn't continue. So I think we just needed to continue to push the game a little bit and make Drake either foul us or score a layup. And I think the other players on the floor just kind of became spectators instead of participants in the game. And but I know Coach Jake will get that straightened out real quick.
Yeah, hopefully we get back on track where we're supposed to be, right? So
winning takes care of a lot of ills.
So, well, as always, we have a great show for everyone this week. We have former director of operations and fan favorite Derrik Netten joining us. After that, we have our Midwest Studies Group nonprofit of the week, then finishing off with the Financial Architect's quote of the week. Let's get started. Randy, we're honored to have joining us today. Drum roll, please.
Yeah.
Are you even hitting anything? It's not very audible, but anyways, Derrik Netten, thanks for joining us, Derrik.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Honored.
So you were at the Drake game the other day, and you saw how things unfolded. How hard is it for you to be sitting in the stands opposed to being on the bench?
It's very hard. Game nights are the worst night. That's the time that I miss the job the most, probably is on game night. If you hear someone yell at the ref or call the ref by name at the Panther games, it's probably me.
Well, that's good. That's great. So well, let me ask you then, when fill in this blank for me, if we could just blank, we would get back on a winning streak again.
Geez, that's tough. Usually it's a cumulative effort or a number of things that lead to losses. It's usually not just one thing. Maybe it's blackouts or 50-50 balls or missed free throws. Usually it's a bunch of little things that add up to a big thing, unfortunately. And so I think just maybe taking care of the details a little bit better what would help. I don't know, to put your finger on one thing, I think it's just hard to do. The one thing that I like, or that I feel, is that I don't think we've even come close to our potential as a team this year, which is exciting. It just seems like between COVID and injuries and Austin's deal, it's just it has not been smooth sailing for us this year as a team. And man, I was a part of some special teams, and just the cohesiveness and the tightness. And Randy, you've probably been involved with some teams that way, where it might just feel a little bit different or something's just a little bit off. But like I said, the exciting part to me is we've got the rest of January and all of February to figure that out and get together and get tight and get on the same page. And coaches talked a lot about, we're just not where we need to be defensively with rotations and timing and just anticipation and stuff like that. So I think the exciting part is we just have a lot to grow yet and to improve.
I think too, we were on a roll, obviously, before we had the Drake loss, and coming into that game, everybody expected, even the last second shot that they had to bring it to overtime, everybody's like, okay, we've been here before. We're just going to end up winning this and we'll just be fine.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, I think the cohesiveness, the team unity, it just wasn't there for that overtime period, and we kind of stalled out.
Yep.
And Drake took advantage of it every possession and made it happen. But yeah, back to Chuck's question a little bit. So in some of those timeouts and that type of thing, I don't think people realized kind of what your role was for the team there, especially those last 3, 4, 5 years. Kind of run us through maybe some of those timeouts and what your role was for the team at that point.
Yeah, so I would obviously get coach's chair right to the timeout circle right away and get him the whiteboard. Sometimes I'd have to step in between him and the ref and play mediator and peacekeeper and just be by his side and just make sure, maybe a conversation doesn't go the wrong direction for us or for him in particular, and get him back into the huddle and get going with the timeout. And then I kept track of what we called the vitals sheet. So timeouts, fouls, possession arrow, who to foul at the end of a game, that sort of thing. And so during the timeout, I would always either take a look at the stat sheet that gets delivered to us, or, physically just go to the scores table to the head scorekeeper and just make sure, hey, this is what we've got for team fouls. Am I correct? This is who I've got for maybe 4 fouls or 3 fouls. If there's a particular individual in foul trouble, possession arrow. I just wanted to always know and have that information correct, handy, and just immediate for coach or for coaches when they asked for it. Like the other night, against maybe Valpo or Drake, on that vitals sheet, going into the game, I'd have Randy Kraayenbrink's a 50% free throw shooter. I know that's not the truth. But for example, Randy Kraayenbrink's a 50%. So if it's in a tight game and maybe we're down 3 or down 4 and we need to steal possession, I can easily say, hey, we need to foul 32 and 30 or whoever it may be, to, put them at the line and hopefully maybe like I said, buy a possession or 2. So yeah, that was probably the most important part of what I did on game night, was just making sure coach and coaches had all the pertinent information right at their disposal.
What about when you were with Coach Mack, because that's who you started out with, right? And so what were some big differences that you saw that you had to get used to when you went from Mack to Jake?
Yeah. Good question. That's a long time ago now. So yeah, I was a manager under Coach Mack my junior and senior years at Northern Iowa. I guess maybe collaboration would maybe be the biggest difference. Mack was always big, and when there was a timeout on the floor, he would huddle with the coaches, the whole staff quickly, for maybe the first 15, 20 seconds and get everyone's quick thoughts. And then he'd hop into the huddle. And Jake's more of a thinker and, kind of just needs his time to gather his thoughts. I guess that was maybe the biggest difference between the two of them. And to say one way is the right way or not. I mean, there's, like they always say, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. And they've both had a ton of success. So there's definitely not the correct answer in that situation. I'm just saying that was maybe the biggest difference, was the collaboration part between them.
The other thing too, that I think that we have to remember for this season, obviously COVID, everything that's going on there with the team and the players, but your insight a little bit on, Coach Green obviously
Yeah.
left the program too, which was a big hole to fill. And Tuttle is going to be awesome filling that hole, no doubt. And
Yep.
you know that better than we do. But that I think just maybe shed a little light on maybe what Coach Green brought to practices, brought to game days, that Coach Tuttle is going to pick up on and do.
Yeah. I guess the obvious thing is just the experience. Coach Green's been an assistant at a number of places. He's seen a ton of different things. He's been a head coach. He's been an assistant coach. He's been in a lot of different chairs or put on a lot of different hats. And so I would say just the overall just experience and communication and, hey, back in 2008, we did this against this and this seemed to work. And, just, I guess that goes back to experience, but I would say that's just the biggest thing between Seth and Coach Green. Seth is going to be a star. He is a star. He just needs the experience. They're both really good communicators. I think they both relate well to the guys. I would say just the communication or the overall experience that Coach Green brought.
When you were a manager, and then obviously you went into the director of operations role, you went to school to become a teacher. So
I did.
What got you into the world of coaching? What made you go from, this manager gig isn't too bad. Let me kind of progress this even further.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. So like you said, I went to school to be a teacher and a coach. Just growing up, that's kind of what I had 3 older brothers. And so I've been I was brought to basketball and baseball and football events for as long as I can remember, honestly. And so the teacher coach and sports and that sort of thing really interested me. So I go to UNI because they've got a great track record for teachers, obviously. Wanted to get away from home. I'm from Northwest Iowa originally. Wanted to see different parts of the world and experience different stuff. So that's how I chose Northern Iowa. When I got there, I had a part-time job at Dan Deary's, and I worked in the car wash for him. And I got involved then at Holmes Middle School as a volunteer, just to start getting experience. And Dan and I were talking one day, and he's just like, "So what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Man, I'd love to be a college coach someday." Doesn't everyone? I mean, so he's like, "Well, I know Coach Mack. I can maybe get you involved in the program." And so Dan made a call to Mack, and set up an appointment for me. And as they say, the rest is history. They brought me on as a manager, and I was able to do that the summer before my junior year, all of my junior year, and then all of my senior year as well. And then, like I said, prior to us hopping on, I graduated in 2006, the same spring that Mac took the Iowa State job. I had a couple of different opportunities. Ended up going to UW Superior as the head assistant, and that was a fantastic experience. I'm 23 years old and running practice and doing recruiting, and it's just the head coach and myself. And so you just get thrown into the fire, and that was a fantastic opportunity. And then coach offered me a spot back about 1.5 years later at Northern Iowa. When I say Coach Jake offered me a spot back at Northern Iowa. It was a 3-year guarantee. Originally, I was going to be administrative assistant for 1 year, and then the GA spot was going to open up the following year, and then I would be a GA for 2 years after that. When I got there, I forget the whole domino that fell. It was either Coach Foster or Coach Glass had left, and I got bumped up into the op spot after about 1.5 years at Northern Iowa. And actually after a year, it was after that first year, because I never was a GA. just went into ops right after that. And then I was there for 12 years.
Well, you have a great thing going for you now over at, Iowa Sports Supply, being the president there. So not to take anything away from that experience.
Yep.
But what was the hardest thing for you to give up when leaving the Panthers?
Man, as I've gotten into the business world, the hardest I've never been able to find anything to replicate the feeling of a huge win where the guys just gutted it out and stepped up and guys made plays, and maybe you stole one on the road or you beat a North Carolina. Like, I've never been able to replicate that feeling of accomplishment in the business world. There's obviously sales and numbers and all that stuff and goals and those type of things that I set for myself and you hit but that feeling of togetherness and just toughness and the guys coming together in the locker room, that's a special feeling, and just something that I've never been able to replicate on this side of the court.
Selling 25 sets of shoulder pads just doesn't do it versus North Carolina.
It's close.
Yes,
but
all right.
It doesn't quite fill the bucket like beating Carolina at home, or obviously the Kansas win, or you remember the big ones
Right.
the most. But man, there's some roadies in the middle of winter that are, whether it's a 4 or 5 hour bus trip, and it's like, man, we had a couple of incredible games down at Missouri State. I remember when we won at Southern Illinois for the first time in like 12 years. I mean, those feelings are just, they're special moments in the locker room afterwards. So I miss that a lot. And then just the relationships with the guys. I often joked I had 5 kids at home and 15 kids at work, because they were always kind of my guys. And so just the relationships with the players is what I miss as well.
Well, next time Sally makes a sale, you should jump out of your seat, go, yeah, and just get super pumped for that. So
Yeah.
Everybody rushed the conference table.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And don't get me wrong, we've got things turned around here, and we had an incredible year this year. But just like I said, just that it's different. I mean, Randy, you've been in a locker room after maybe an upset, or where it's just like, man, your backs were against the wall. Maybe you needed a stop, a score, and a stop to win, or a score, a stop, and a score to win. Like,
Yeah.
Those are special moments.
Right.
Well, Derrik, you have over 12 years of experience doing this. When you think of all those, post-game locker room experiences, like whether it's celebrations, disappointments, etc. I mean, over the years, what's that 1 or 2 games that just stick out to be most memorable to you then?
The Texas and A&M, those 48 hours, like, it was the absolute highest of highs to the lowest of lows. And, we dominated Texas. And honestly, we dominated A&M, obviously. It didn't go our way. And just, you cried tears of joy after Texas. And I was crying in the hallway after that A&M game, and Coach Jake had to console me, and he is a strong man. And it hurt. It hurt. I mean, to see, and more so, that group was special, just to extend the season another week and just be with those guys and experience, the NCAA tournament for another week. I mean, that was hard. Carolina at home was incredible. One of the best atmospheres. I always, that one, or Wichita State, Seth's senior year, we were both ranked, I think, in the top 15 when they came to our place. No one liked Greg Marshall. So to beat him and kind of really stick it to him at home that year, that was an incredible win. Obviously the Kansas game was special. The game right before that, UNLV, that was our first win as a staff in the NCAA tournament. I mean, and so just that, I mean, that was an incredible and special feeling. And, just running, walking off the floor and then just sprint to the locker room so that you can celebrate with the team. And those moments are incredible.
I like how you said nobody liked Greg Marshall as if it was a past tense. I think it's actually like no one likes Greg Marshall, but anyways,
and he was a great coach. He was just, he goes about things in a different way than what most people did or do. And so, he just rubbed people the wrong way. And so anytime you could beat the Shockers, number one, you knew it was going to be a good win because of the program that he had built. But number two, to beat him was a little bit better too than some coaches.
I take it Coach Marshall is not a client of yours.
He is not. No, they don't buy stuff from us.
Just check.
Well, you mentioned how the players meant so much to you. They were like an extended part of your family. You talk about how emotional you were after Texas A&M. Here's a quote that I got from Jeremy Morgan, talking to him this past weekend. And he said, Netter's always brought a great positive energy every day. If we needed anything at all, he was our guy. What goes through your mind when you hear a quote like that?
It honestly, it makes my hair stand up. I mean, to me, it just means that I did what I was supposed to do. If they needed to text me something or if they needed something, they know, and they knew, and they still know that I'm always here and available for them. It was bigger than basketball for me. I spent a lot of time in the locker room with the guys, because the locker room it's where they could let loose a little bit and relax, and maybe they're riding Paul Jesperson or Bobo or Lincoln or whoever the case may be. I mean, just making it light. Those moments those were fun moments for me personally. It's where I got to know those guys and maybe know them a little too well. There's times where I'm just like, dude, you can't be saying that stuff around me. I don't want to hear it, that kind of stuff. But I think it helped them to trust me too, that they could tell me stuff and I wasn't going to run to Jake or run to Kyle or run to PJ or whoever the case may be, that, hey, it is between you and I, and maybe I agree with you, maybe I don't agree with you, but here's what maybe coach is coming from, or vice versa. So I just always wanted to be available. So to hear that from JMO, it means a lot. It means, like I said, it means I was doing my job.
Well, on the coaching side of things, I mean, you've seen out there, and Greg Marshall is a great example, but you've seen these control freak head coaches who maybe treat their players and assistants like underlings. What is it about Jake's style, though, that keeps his staff around for so long?
He is a family man. I think any of us would say that about him. If you needed to go to a doctor's appointment with your wife or take your kids to the dentist or what have you, he was incredibly understanding about that. And he cared about us individually. If we slipped up or if we weren't doing our job to the potential that he thought we were doing, he wouldn't rip us. He'd bring us in his office and we'd have a conversation. And he'd ask, how's your family doing? How's your mom and dad and your brother? Like, he just, it was more than basketball or more than a job or a colleague, or he's my boss with him. And I think that's what makes the guys stick around and work for him. And I mean, Northern Iowa job has gotten, because of Mac and because of what Jake has done, that job has gotten better and they've been able to pay better. And so, I think cumulatively it's just a pretty good job right now.
And even for you,
yeah.
I mean, even for you, when you left there, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision. I'm sure that conversation with Jake when you left was tough.
It was not easy. I often when I was in the position, and I still talk this way, I didn't work a day in my life for 12 years. I mean, I truly thought that way with my position at Northern Iowa, that it was a dream job. I went to school there. I'm a Panther through and through. And so I just never thought of it as a job. I was very lucky that way. And so having those conversations with Jake was hard. It was not easy. It was not fun. I did not enjoy them. He was great. He was understanding. He helped me lay out the pros and cons. So that made it easier for me. I mean, he got it. He understood where I was coming from and what I needed to do as a dad and all of that stuff. So, but to make it sound like it was easy, no, it was hardest decision I've ever had to make, honestly.
Well, Randy and I will say it. Nobody else will, but we'll say it that the team hasn't made the NCAA tournament since you left the team. So one could say that if it wasn't for you, the team wouldn't be where it was historically.
No, it's always about the team.
So
it's all about the team. It's a bunch of moving parts that, it's like a big puzzle, and you just got to, each one of us we're a small piece of a big puzzle. And so, man, I really thought, was that COVID year, they had a heck of a year. I think it was my first year out. That was one of my hardest years, obviously, because I was just so connected to everyone still on that team. I left in August, and then they went to Italy and came back, started school, and right into the season. And so I literally knew everyone yet on that squad. And I think they went, 25-5 or something that year. And we're trudging in the right direction. And so, yeah, it's not because of me, that's for sure.
Well, you should have went to Italy first and then maybe. But anyways,
Jake told me that. He's like, you at least got to go to Italy with us. I'm like, man, with the Iowa sports job, August is kind of an important month with coaches and ADs getting back in school. And so I just wanted to, I just wanted to put my best foot forward and have the best opportunity for success on this side of it all. But he's like, you're crazy for not going to Italy with us. And as I look back, yeah, I am.
Well, here's some operation questions for you. And that is, you hear from people all the time. Why doesn't UNI just schedule this team or that team? Or why can't we just do a home away like UNC? Or why can't we play top teams, blah, blah, blah. Can you, because you were very much part of this, can you walk us through the scheduling process and what fans need to remember when it comes to scheduling?
Man, we could spend an hour podcast just talking about scheduling. It was, when I started scheduling, it wasn't nearly as difficult. We had Iowa and Iowa State both on the schedule. So say we play 18 league games, that leaves 12 non-conference games that you got to find. Probably one non-D1. So now you're at 11 that you truly need to find. Well, Iowa and Iowa State was built in. We had a home and home we were either at Iowa State and Iowa at home or vice versa. So we had those two built-in games that you didn't have to find. They were just there already. Also, when I hopped in, if you remember, they had the bracket buster with ESPN where it was a late February or mid-February game. I think they'd usually announce the pairings about this time of year, and it'd be based on record. And hey, Northern Iowa's having a really good year. Bucknell's having a really good year. Let's pit those two together against each other. So you had the current year bracket buster, but then if Bucknell came to our place the following year, you returned it. So you had two built-in bracket buster games every year that you didn't have to find as well. So now you're at 4 built-in games that you didn't have to find. Then there was a Mountain West Challenge for a few years that you didn't have to find. All that stuff has now gone away where, now you're looking at 4 or 5 extra games that you've got to find every year. And what it takes financially to buy teams in now, I can't remember what we probably spent the most on to get a team in, maybe 75. I think the most that I ever got was 105 or 110 from Syracuse when we went out there. I can't remember what officially that was. Carolina paid us 90 or 95 to go down there. That was a home and home. We both exchanged money on the home and homes just to make it even. I think it was 25,000. We paid North Carolina to come to Northern Iowa for 25. They gave us 25, but then in that third year of that 2-for-1, they gave us, I want to say 95. And that was one of our obviously bigger paydays. So just what it costs to get to quote unquote buy games. It's a lot with our budget. We could probably get 2 buy games with our money. And so, now you're looking at still trying to find 7 to 9 games to find. And so it was hard. It was really hard. St. Louis, I always wanted to get St. Louis. I thought that was just a natural good game for both of us, honestly. They never wanted to do it. Obviously when Creighton left and Mac being there, that was never going to happen with, the relationship between our staff and their staff. Just, no one ever wanted to see the other get beat. So that wasn't ever going to happen. And then you look around, Milwaukee went kind of down where that wasn't maybe a good, series that we wanted. Green Bay was up and down. UMKC is down. So there's just a lot. As a staff, we always said we want to put ourselves in position to earn an at-large bid come March. If we have a good MVC season and we have a good non-conference season, we should be in the mix for an at-large. And to Jake's credit, he's played anyone and anywhere, whether that be a neutral site or a home and home or what have you. There's a lot of teams that we bought Morehead State when they were dang good with Kenneth Fareed, and we won. We tended to buy teams that were good. We wanted opportunities to bolster the resume, and so because of that, we took some games that were maybe head scratchers, but man, we didn't want to be there at the end of February, beginning of March, and say, I wish we would have. We just wanted to make sure that we controlled our own destiny when it came to that. And then, honestly, the Power Fives, they don't want the mid-majors in the NCAA tournament. And so they want that entire pie, as in the money, to go to them. And so if they don't play mid-majors and give Northern Iowa an opportunity to beat Iowa or beat Iowa State or, go to Carolina and win, or go to Virginia. We played, I forgot about them. And if they don't schedule those games, they don't give us the opportunity to beat them. And so I just think the way it's going, that's only going to get worse and worse and harder, that they're going to give less and less opportunities to mid-majors and mid-major pluses, an opportunity to beat them, whether that's on a neutral site in tournaments or at their place. I think they're going to always buy those lower level teams.
And then when Northern Iowa goes on the road and beats one of those teams, or they bring them to the McLeod and beat one of those teams, you aren't getting invited back, or they're not coming back to the McLeod.
No, that's just it. I mean, Northern Iowa, because of what Jake has done, we're kind of in no man's land, where you're a good mid-major. You either need to get a little bit better where it doesn't look bad if you get beat by us, or you got to get worse where anyone will play you. Right now we're in absolute no man's land where no one wants to play us, because they're like, we know coach can coach and we don't want to play you guys. We've seen what you guys have done. We know your guys' history. Yeah. We know what type of players you guys have. And so it's just hard. I mean, every year, I can rattle off 5 to 10 teams where we were always the same ones looking way late in the year for games. It was St. Bonaventure. It was Boise State. A lot of those Mountain West teams, some of those A-10 teams, that the Power Fives don't want to touch. And so we always joke, like, who's going to budge first? Or because we all wanted to start at our place and then return. And because it's just so hard to get home games. And so who's going to budge first? You come into our place or what? And like I said, it was always the same teams, that were always looking for games way late.
Well, I will tell you this, if you just let Coach Jake know that Chuck still has a team. And if they're looking for possibly a tough game, Chuck could bring in his team sometime.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
Who's your team, Chuck?
Yeah. Let's just move on to the next question here, Randy. So, but it is interesting for you though that you are at the bar, like you personally are at the bargaining table, if you will. Like you're talking to their director of operations. Like that's a heavy role that you played.
Yeah, and we're more or less conversation starters. We would always get frustrated as ops people. It's like if the dang head coaches would just pick up the phone and call each other, this thing would get over in 20 minutes as opposed to 2 months or 2 weeks. Like they're the actual decision makers. We always said that it's just funny that there's just so much back and forth between us ops people, like, and it's hard. I mean, I was always truthful and honest with everyone in all of my conversations. I can't say that's always the case everywhere else. And so you're always in the back of your mind. It's like, I'd always get scared to get too excited about, hey, we might have an opportunity or we might have a game here, because I've just seen, I got burned too many times of, the coach wasn't ready or he thought it was good, but the coach didn't think it was. Like, I always had a really good idea of what coach thought or what he was looking for. And so when I went to someone and with a proposal or with an opportunity, like if I went back to Jake, I had a dang good feeling that it wasn't going to fall through on my end. And so there was just a lot of, I guess, games played on the other end. And it's just like, man, is this guy telling the truth or is he not? I mean, just because you've gotten burned so many times. So it was always hard. That's why we always just said the dang head coaches would just pick up the phone and call each other, and this thing would get hammered out in 20 minutes.
Well, here's the last question for you before we let you go.
Yeah.
And that is, again, operations wise, and you've had an indirect responsibility as part of the recruitment process. And you talked about how there's a lot of potential for this team still. Which current players that you helped to bring to the table have you excitedly said to yourself, you know what, this guy is turning out just like we thought he would?
Recruiting's hard. I mean, it's really hard. It's a lot of projection, obviously. At Northern Iowa, the kids that we recruit, they're a little bit closer to their ceiling than maybe other places. We always wanted high skill guys, shoot it, pass it, handle it. And so our guys are always usually a little bit closer to the ceiling, to their ceiling. I think, a guy that has just gotten better and better, just even since we started recruiting him, was Nate Heisey. I mean, we really liked him in high school. We thought he was a special player, but he's maybe a little bit better athlete than what I remember him being. He's turned into a tremendous defender for us. And he's competitive. So I think that's been kind of cool to see. Obviously, AJ, we knew he was a very high level player. That's why he was ranked in the top 100 by everyone. So I don't know. I guess, like I said, our guys it's hard to say just one person is maybe like who we kind of thought he was, just because, like I said, our guys that we recruit, they come from good families. They come from good programs. And our guys that we recruit are just a little bit higher, closer to their ceiling than most places, where you got to really kind of project, like, man, this guy is raw, but he could be good. Like, we just haven't had a ton of those guys, because of the type of player that we recruit.
Coach Netten, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And
it was fun. It was fun. Shoot, we could talk ops stories for an hour or two.
Oh man,
just horror stories and good stories. Just where's the plane at, or where's the bus at, or the meal is 20 minutes late.
Where's the food at?
Yeah, exactly. The meal is 20 minutes late, and I said to deliver it to the loading dock. Well, I'm sitting at the front door. Well, where's the front door? And they're saying, where's the loading dock? I mean, it's just And I could double check and triple check, and it still didn't matter. With that job, you just rely on so many other people to make it look like you did your job. And so, goodness, we had there's some incredible stories.
Another man, Chuck, that bleeds purple and gold right there.
Yes, Panther forever, baby.
As everyone knows, Randy and I have a big heart for the nonprofits in this community. This week, we have Americans for Independent Living joining us. Drum roll, please, Randy. Teresa Jaden is our guest. Thanks for joining us today, Teresa.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So AFIL, which is what you're known as, has been around in Iowa for several years. Maybe you could tell us what your organization does.
Yeah, so we assist veterans in need within the Cedar Valley. We've got a number of programs where we're able to assist veterans, and it breaks down to veterans who are experiencing homelessness, disabled veterans, and low-income veterans. So we can help with a variety of things, whether it be housing or items for their home that they need, food, possible clothing, or home modifications for those veterans who are, like disabled from whatever service they did for our country.
Teresa, that's as Chuck said, we do have a heart for the nonprofits, and the veterans are one not-for-profit or an organization that obviously has given a ton to our country for our freedoms to be able to do and say whatever we want, whenever we want. Tell us maybe a little bit about how many like homeless veterans are maybe in the Cedar Valley area that we wouldn't have a clue about, or how many people you maybe help.
Sure. Yep. On average, the veterans experiencing homelessness through my almost 6 years, pardon me, of working here has been about between 30 and 40 veterans per year that have declared themselves as being homeless, where they've been able to be assisted with housing and whatever else they needed, which to me, when I started working here, it was a surprise. I think, what, here in the Cedar Valley, we have veterans who are homeless? And we do. They are out there. We just don't realize it. So I'm glad that we are set up to assist them. Since 2015, just so you know, AFIL has assisted over 800 veterans and their families, whether it be with the housing, the furniture, the clothing, the home modifications, all those things combined. So there's a need out there for our services.
Well, I know you're always looking for either donations or people to volunteer to help your organization grow and work with the clients that you do. How could people learn more?
Yeah, you can either go to our website, which is afil.org, or we do have a Facebook page where we update that quite often, and that's AFIL Iowa. So you can find us at either location.
Teresa, thank you very much for joining us, and we appreciate all you do, and keep up the great work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
This brings us to the part of the week that everyone has been waiting for, the Financial Architect's Quote of the Week.
Just pulling it up here on my screen, Chuck. That's why I was looking down. So the quote of the week: the happiest people are the givers, not the takers.
Are you a giver or a taker, Randy?
I'm a little bit of both, Coach. A little bit of both. I try to be a giver more than a taker. I've learned that.
That makes for a great challenge. The challenge for myself this week, and maybe all of our listeners, try to be a better giver than a taker.
There you go.
Well said. Good for you. Good for me. Good for everybody. It's time to say goodbye from Chuck and Randy. Thanks for joining us. Catch you next week. Enter the closing music.